This happened a week ago. I'm a local journalist, but I never thought I'd be writing about something like this. I usually cover stories that bring people together, but lately, my small town felt off. It was too quiet. After a tough breakup, I became more aware of the shadows around me. I started hearing whispers about people going missing. They bubbled up from the cracks, like nails on a chalkboard. A town meeting changed everything. The news came that Sarah and Tommy, two siblings who went missing 5 years ago, had suddenly returned. They were thought to be dead. I listened carefully, writing down all the details. The room buzzed with mixed emotions. It felt wrong. I noticed folks shifting in their chairs, some even pale. I felt my gut tighten that I started asking questions, but the townsfolk mostly kept quiet. It made my skin crawl. Their eyes darted around, searching for safety but finding none. The kids played outside, and I could see the nervous glances the parents exchanged. I had to know more. One afternoon, I went to the old library to dig deeper. I shuffled through dusty books and found faded photos of the siblings. They looked so innocent, but their eyes held something darker. They appeared older than they were, as if they carried a heavy secret. I felt chills run down my spine. Rumors followed, speaking about gatherings at the community center at midnight. I didn't know what they were up to, but my curiosity pulled me in. My heart raced every time I passed the place. That night, as I drove home, I caught sight of Sarah and Tommy walking down a deserted street. They held hands, their faces glowing beneath the streetlights. I parked and watched. Just like that, they turned a corner and disappeared. I wondered if I should follow them or run. The next day, I went to see Mrs. Jensen, a neighbor who had known the kids. I barely got a word out before she snapped, "They shouldn't have come back." Her eyes were wild, scanning for threats. I tried to press her for more, but she wouldn't say anything. Instead, she seemed lost, her gaze drifting to a different time. Later that week, I got a call about a meeting at the community center. It was just before midnight. I thought about warning someone, but I was as curious as anyone. What was happening to my town? I slipped into the gathering that night, the air thick with fear. People huddled together, whispering. I turned to leave when I saw her, Sarah, standing right in front of me. Our eyes locked. "Don't you want to know what happened?" she asked softly. My heart sank. I wanted to run, but I couldn't pull my eyes away. Maybe I should have listened to my gut. The truth I was looking for felt like a trap. The shadows returned, ready to swallow me whole. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled into my bones as Sarah's question hung in the air. She stepped closer, her gaze piercing. "It's important," she urged, almost in a whisper, as if afraid to be overheard. My mind raced with thoughts of what she could possibly mean. "Why now?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a mumble. She paused, glancing around the room. The silence deepened, amplifying the tension brewing among the townsfolk. I couldn't help but notice how people avoided eye contact with her and Tommy, leaning in on one another for comfort. There's Sarah hesitated, searching my face. "We need to tell what happened to us. To everyone." Before I could respond, she grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "Come with us." I felt a knot form in my stomach. My instincts screamed to run, but something in her eyes held me captive. I nodded, albeit reluctantly. She motioned for me to follow her and Tommy, who had stayed silent but was now staring at me intently. That we slipped out the back door of the community center and into the cool night. The streets were empty, illuminated only by the eerie glow of a crescent moon. I felt exposed and apprehensive. What was I getting myself into? As we turned down a side alley, I caught a glimpse of more familiar faces peeking through the darkness, shadowy figures waiting for something. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice lacking conviction. "To the place where it all happened," Tommy replied. Though he spoke lightly, there was an edge to his tone that sent chills down my spine. a place of past horrors? The thought electrified my fear that we arrived at an old, abandoned house at the edge of town. Its windows were boarded up, the door hanging off its hinges. I hesitated, my heart pounding louder than the gravel crunching beneath my feet. "This is where you've been?" I questioned, trying to mask the panic creeping in. Sarah nodded, her expression unreadable. "You have to understand," she said, her voice softer now, "it's not what you think." As we stepped through the door, I felt the temperature drop. A musty smell clung to the air. Dust motes danced in the faint light sneaking past the boarded windows. My unease spiked. "What's in here?" I whispered, barely daring to disturb the silence. "Everything," Sarah replied, leading me into a dimly lit room. The walls were lined with faded photographs and scribbled notes. I realized with dawning horror that they were filled with names, dates, places, lists of the missing. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized some of the names. Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure appeared, a man I didn't recognize. He stood there, his face obscured by the darkness. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice low and threatening. My heart raced as I took a step back. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. The floorboards shuddered beneath my feet, drowning me in panic. And then, everything went dark. I regained my senses, disoriented and gasping for air. I was lying on the cold floor, the musty scent still thick in my nostrils. What just happened? The question echoed in my mind. Panic clawed at my throat as I sat up, heart racing. The dim room felt heavy, as if it held its breath, waiting for something to break the silence. "Are you okay?" I heard Sarah's voice, but it sounded distant. I blinked hard, trying to adjust to the faint light. She was kneeling beside me, her face pale. Tommy hovered nearby, his expression strained. I think so," I managed, catching my breath. "But what was that? Who was that man?" Sarah's eyes darted towards the shadows. "He's not alone. We have to move," she whispered urgently. I felt a jolt at her words, the weight of something more tangible than fear pressing down on me. That I scrambled to my feet, the floorboards creaking ominously beneath me. "What do you mean he's not alone?" I didn't want to think about it, but an instinct told me there was more lurking in the dark corners of this house. "Some of them came back," Tommy said, shifting nervously on his feet. "But it's not safe for us here. We need to leave before they find us." "Who came back?" I asked, the question tasting bitter on my tongue. "And who are they?" Sarah grabbed my arm tight, and her grip felt desperate. "People we lost. People who went missing years ago. They've changed." I felt a chill creep down my spine. The names on the wall flashed in my mind, faces I had known and loved. "You mean to tell me they came back to town?" "Not all of them," Tommy cut in sharply. "Some came back." He glanced back towards the darkened room, caution lining his features. "But not everyone is friendly." Before I could process what he was saying, the sounds of shuffling feet echoed in the distance, and my stomach dropped. "We have to get out, now," I yelled, adrenaline shooting through my veins. Sarah nodded, the resolve in her eyes unwavering. She led us deeper into the house, the oppressive air making it hard to breathe. The wall of photos and names felt like a weight pushing down on me, reminding me of the lives lost, the stories unfinished. As we turned a corner, I spotted an exit, a small window, half buried beneath debris. A glimmer of hope ignited as I rushed toward it. "That's when I saw it," I said aloud, heart thumping. A dark figure loomed just outside the window, silhouetted against the moonlight, eyes glowing eerily. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. "Sarah!" I called, panic rising again. "There's someone outside. Go now," she ordered, shoving me towards the window. "Don't look back." I climbed toward the exit, terror swelling inside me as I peeked over my shoulder. The figure was closer now, moving with an unnatural grace. Just as I squeezed through the window, I felt a cold hand clamp around my ankle, pulling me back into the darkness. As I struggled to break free, I heard a whisper, the same low, threatening voice from before. "You shouldn't have come back." I fought with everything I had, desperate to escape. The darkness threatened to consume me once more, but I couldn't let it. I wouldn't let it. I awoke on the ground, heart pounding. The cold air bit into my skin, but I felt an overwhelming heat surging through me. I was disoriented, the last memories swirling in my mind like shadows. The whisper still echoed in my ears, demanding, threatening. I scrambled to get up, scanning my surroundings. Concrete walls surrounded me, and the faint stench of decay hung in the air. I realized I was in a basement, the only light filtering through small, grimy windows up high. My heart raced as I spotted a door ajar, leading to a dark hallway beyond. "Sarah? Tommy?" I called out, my voice hoarse and uncertain. Silence answered me, thick and suffocating. Panic gripped me as I stumbled toward the door. Had I lost them again in this nightmare? I pushed the door wider, peering into the hallway. The air was stale, and I noticed a trail of muddy footprints leading further in. They hadn't been too far ahead. Gathering my courage, I followed the prints, each step sounding like a drumbeat in the silence of the house. The hallway twisted back and forth, the floor creaked under my weight. I could hear faint whispers and the sound of movement beyond the walls. My gut twisted. Something was watching me. "Where are you?" My voice was softer now, edged with fear. My thoughts raced ahead. What had happened when I was pulled back? Had they caught Sarah or Tommy? The whispers grew louder, echoing along the walls. I pressed on. Just as I reached a staircase, a figure emerged from the nearby shadows. My breath caught. It was Sarah. Relief flooded through me. Sarah. I ran towards her, but she looked different. Her eyes were clouded, and there was a distance in her gaze. "I thought I lost you. We need to go. They know we're here." Her voice was low, almost robotic. I nearly recoiled. She was speaking with urgency, but her tone lacked the familiar warmth. "Who knows?" I pressed, my heart racing again. "What happened to Tommy?" "Tommy, he asked not." She hesitated, and fear seized me once more. "Just come on. We don't have time to explain." I followed her, my mind racing with questions. The further we went into the house, the stronger the whispers became, inviting and terrible at the same time. They felt like hands, reaching into my mind. We reached a door at the end of the hall. "This way," she said, pushing it open. The room that opened up was massive, filled with clutter and darkness. No windows, just shadows deep and menacing. Before I could step inside, a voice echoed through the space. It was low and mocking, sending chills down my spine. "Welcome back, my dear," it said. "You've returned to us." I froze in fear. "Who is there?" The shadows shifted, and in the center of the room, a tall figure emerged. It had the familiarity of someone I once knew, but the smile was wrong, twisted. That was when I realized a different kind of fear settled in. This wasn't just about escaping anymore, it was about facing the truth of who had returned. I stumbled backward, my heart racing. The figure's smile twisted like a knife, catching the dim light and reflecting it in a way that made me unsteady. "You thought you could escape us?" It taunted, voice dripping with mockery. "You must have missed our little games. Get away from her." Sarah shouted, stepping in front of me, her voice regaining some semblance of strength. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of recognition mixed with fear. The figure took a step forward, mocking us with a slow, deliberate pace. "You're not equipped to play in this world anymore. You've been away too long." My mind was racing, trying to piece together how this could be happening. Memories flashed through my mind of laughter, fights, and the day it all changed. "Who are you?" I managed to say, my voice shaking. Don't you remember? The figure chuckled, tilting its head. The resemblance was uncanny. I'm your dear friend. I missed you so much. Tommy. I whispered, the name hanging heavy in the air. Sarah's grip tightened on my arm, her expression shifting to horror. No. It can't be him, she gasped. Not like this. Like what? The figure's eyes darkened, and its smile widened. You think you know me? You think you can walk away from what was done? I stared into those familiar eyes and saw nothing but darkness. You're not him, I said, my voice rising. You can't be. The room pulsed with energy, the shadows thickening around us, clinging to my skin like a shroud. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening. It was suffocating. I could feel Sarah's heartbeat against my arm and the weight of my panic closing in. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, wrapping around the figure. Its face twisted in an expression of rage. You will pay for forgetting. It seethed, lunging towards us. In that moment, instinct kicked in. I pulled Sarah with me, darting to the right, dodging the tendrils of darkness. We rushed deeper into the room, scanning for a way out. The clutter around us seemed alive, ready to consume us. Then I spotted an old wooden door partially hidden behind a pile of rubble. Over there! I shouted, pointing frantically. We dashed toward it, desperation fueling our every move. As we neared the door, a loud crash echoed, and the figure stumbled after us, its voice a mix of outrage and sadness. You can't escape the truth. With shaking hands, I yanked the door open, revealing a dark corridor that seemed to stretch into nothingness. I hesitated, my mind screaming for answers, but the figure was closing in. Sarah, now! I urged, and we both plunged through the door. The moment we stepped inside, the air shifted. The whispers turned into a cacophony of screams, pulling at my thoughts. I fought against the tide, dragging Sarah along. Just as I thought we were free, the door slammed shut behind us. The darkness thickened, and I felt a chill sweep through the corridor. A faint glow appeared ahead, but before I could take a step toward it, I caught a glimpse of something lurking in the shadows, a pair of eyes, watching us closely. I held my breath, dread filling the space. I realized we weren't out of danger yet. We'd only just begun to uncover what waited for us in this new darkness. The corridor tightened around us, the faint glow flickering like a dying star. I felt a surge of fear at the thought of what might be lurking just out of sight. What do we do now? I whispered to Sarah, my voice trembling. She shook her head, her eyes darting toward the glow. Just keep moving. We can't stay here. I nodded, pulling her forward. We stepped cautiously, each footfall echoing in the stillness. The air felt heavy, pressing down on us like a weight. I could hear my heartbeat thumping in my ears, a constant reminder of our precarious situation. Then I noticed something on the ground. A piece of paper, battered and torn, lay just steps away. Without thinking, I picked it up and unfolded it. The words were jagged, scrawled in frantic handwriting, "They are watching. Do not trust the darkness." Look at this, I said, showing it to Sarah. Her face paled as she read it. Who wrote this? We need to. Before she could finish, the glow pulsed brighter, illuminating the corridor. Shadows flitted along the walls, moving in erratic patterns. I peered into the darkness and noticed several figures standing just beyond the light, their forms shifting and indistinct. Are those people? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't tell. My hands shook as I gripped the paper. Maybe it's another trap. The last bit of light flickered again, and the figures stepped closer, revealing faint outlines. My stomach clenched. They looked familiar. Tommy? I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. The figures froze, and for a moment, I thought I saw recognition in their eyes. Then, like a tidal wave, the shadows surged forward. No. Stay back. I yelled, holding the paper like a shield. The figures hesitated, jostled between the light and the encroaching darkness. "Help us," one of them pleaded, the voice echoing with desperation. "Help you? You've been gone. We thought you were dead." I shouted back, lost between anger and fear. "Not dead. Trapped." Another figure cried, each word laced with urgency. "You have to trust us. They're coming." The shadows writhed, dark tendrils reaching toward us. My instincts screamed for us to run, but the faces in front of me were hauntingly real, mixing confusion and dread. "They're not the same," Sarah insisted, pulling me back. "We can't trust them." Before I could respond, the corridor shook, the walls trembling as if responding to the impending threat. The glow pulsed again, illuminating a path deeper into the unknown. "Follow us," the figures urged, their voices blending into a chorus. "It's the only way out." I hesitated, my heart racing with uncertainty. But the darkness was growing, and I knew we didn't have much time. "Do we trust them?" I asked Sarah, eyes wide. "I don't know," she replied, biting her lip. "But we have to choose now." With the shadows closing in, I made a decision. "Let us go," I said, and we sprinted toward the figures, leaving the safety of the light behind. As we moved deeper into the corridor, a new horror filled my chest. It felt like stepping off a cliff, not knowing where we might land. Then, just before we reached the figures, the last flicker of light extinguished, plunging us into inky darkness. I heard whispers surrounding us, echoing as if the very walls were alive. Then everything went black. Suddenly, I felt a jolt of cold air wrap around me, sharp and biting. The darkness was suffocating, and I could only hear the shuffling of feet and heavy breathing close by. My heart raced. "Are you okay?" Sarah whispered, her voice strained. I nodded, though I couldn't see her. "Just hold on to me," I replied, reaching out blindly. My fingers found her arm, and I squeezed. "We need to stick together," she said, sounding more certain than I felt. I could hear the dampness in the air, heavy with silence. Then came the whispers again, so soft they felt like a caress against my skin. The words slipped past, indecipherable and unsettling. "Tommy." A voice called out from the darkness, and my stomach twisted. It sounded like one of the faces we'd seen. "We're close, just follow." "Who are you?" I shouted back, knowing it was futile. The darkness offered no answers. "That's not Tommy." "It can't be," Sarah pleaded, tugging on my arm as if pulling me away from danger. Just as I contemplated retreating, the corridor shifted. Something was moving ahead of us. I squinted into the darkness, straining my eyes for any sign of life. That's when I saw a faint outline forming against the black wall. "Wait," I whispered. "Don't." Sarah hissed, but I found myself instinctively taking a step toward the shape. As I got closer, the figure resolved into a familiar face, his features illuminated by an unseen source. My breath hitched in my throat. It was Josh, another friend who had been missing. His expression was twisted in anguish, eyes darting to something behind me. "Please, you have to listen. They're coming." He gasped, panic lacing his voice. "Who's coming?" I demanded, feeling the weight of dread settle in my gut. "Wicked things," he said, the words dripping with fear. "They've found us, and they're hunting." Before I could respond, a loud thud echoed through the corridor, reverberating off the walls. The ground beneath us trembled. "Run!" Josh shouted, but in that instant, I felt hairy tendrils wrap around my ankle, pulling me down that I kicked and twisted, desperate to break free. "Sarah!" I cried, my voice strained. I could hear her struggling nearby, and I felt a rush of dread. Then I saw a shadow, dark and shifting, rising from somewhere deep within the corridor. It stretched toward us, a spiraling mass of darkness that seemed to warp the air around it. Get up. Josh commanded, pulling me to my feet. He had a grip like iron, but there was no time to think. We had to move. I could barely see, fear clawed at my throat, but adrenaline surged through my veins. We broke into a sprint, the destruction trailing close behind us. I could hear Sarah's heavy breaths and the sound of something scraping against the floor, gaining on us. Just as I thought we might make it to a bend in the corridor, a shrill scream pierced the darkness. The sound shattered something within me. No! I shouted, glancing back. The wavering shadows flickered, and I caught a glimpse of a figure behind us, something our light did not want to reveal. But just as I looked away, something else caught my eye, an exit sign flickering erratically further down the corridor, a beacon in the dark. If we can just reach that, I started, but the air was thick with something palpable. The shadows surged forward with renewed energy, their whispers growing louder, almost deafening. Go! Josh yelled. Now! With a terror-laden kick, I pushed forward, adrenaline fueling my steps. Whatever haunted us had to be pushed away. I could hear the echo of my name being called, faint and distant, but even that could not pull me back. We were running out of time. I took one last breath and dove toward the exit. I burst through the doorway of the exit and collapsed onto the pavement outside. The fresh air hit me like a wave, but it was cold and sharp. I gasped for breath, trying to shake off the remnants of the darkness. Did we make it? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I turned to look for Sarah and Josh, panic sweeping through me when I saw that they were not beside me. Josh! Sarah! I shouted, scanning the eerie surroundings. It was a desolate parking lot, surrounded by nothing but shadows that flickered in the moonlight. I staggered to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest. Over here. Sarah's voice came from my side, trembling but urgent. I turned to see her standing several feet away, her eyes wide with fear. She looked shaken, but relief washed over me at the sight of her. What happened to Josh? I asked, glancing around for him. My stomach twisted at the thought of him lost in that darkness. He was right behind me, she said, her voice shaking. I thought he was with you. Panic clawed at my throat again. The darkness was alive, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed us. Sarah, we have to go back. We can't leave him, I insisted, taking a step toward the door we had just escaped from. No. She shouted, gripping my arm tightly. We can't go back in there. You saw what was chasing us. I hesitated, my instincts at war with each other. The thought of leaving Josh behind was unbearable, but the fear pulsing through me urged caution. Before I could answer, a low rumble echoed from the building. What was that? Sarah gasped, her eyes darting toward the entrance we had just fled. I didn't have an answer, but I felt a chill race down my spine. We should find help, I urged, glancing at the parking lot, searching for any sign of life. It was empty. As we turned to leave, something shimmered near the shadows of the building. I squinted, trying to make sense of the movement. My heart dropped when I finally recognized that figures were emerging from the darkness, slowly walking toward us. No way, I whispered, dread flooding my veins. I recognized the haunting gait of those who had been missing for years, faces I had once known. Sarah, we need to run, I said, panic overtaking me. They shouldn't be here. They're supposed to be gone. But as I pulled Sarah away, she stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. Tommy! One of the figures shouted, their voice hauntingly familiar. We found you. That was when I realized this wasn't a reunion. It was a warning. Something dark was behind them, lurking just at the edges of the light. What do you want? I shouted, desperation thick in my voice. And with that, the shadows shifted, surging toward us once more, hungry for the warmth of the living. I grabbed Sarah's hand and bolted toward the street, not looking back. As we ran, I couldn't help but wonder, if they had returned, what did that mean for us? What had happened to them? But deep down, I knew I didn't want those answers. I just needed to survive. I glanced back one last time, my breath hitching as I saw the once familiar faces blending into the darkness, their mouths opening in a silent scream. An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. We were not safe yet. As we dashed into the street, the cold air stung my lungs, but I hardly noticed. My focus was entirely on the sounds behind us, the rustle of whispers and the soft footfalls that seemed disturbingly close. I didn't dare look back. "Where do we go?" Sarah asked, her voice laced with panic. I searched our surroundings, desperately trying to make sense of where to run. The streetlights flickered above us, casting long shadows that danced on the pavement. "Just keep moving," I shouted, urging her forward. We sprinted down the empty road, our footsteps echoing like a heartbeat. I felt a wave of dread wash over me as I thought of Josh, the ruins we had left behind, the faces emerging from the shadows. After a few minutes, we reached a small diner that still had its neon sign buzzing feebly in the night. "In there," I pointed, and we rushed through the door. The bell above it jingled, a sound that should have felt normal but instead echoed like a warning. Inside, the diner was dim and eerily quiet. The only light came from the flickering fluorescent bulbs above, casting flickering shadows around the empty booths. I quickly peered behind the counter and found it deserted. "Hello?" I called, but the only response was the low hum of the fridge. Fear gnawed at my insides as I scanned for anyone who might help us. "What if they come in here?" Sarah whispered, pulling at my sleeve. "They won tea," I reassured her, though I had no idea if that was true. "We'll just hide for a second and figure out what to do." We slipped into a booth at the back, keeping our eyes fixed on the entrance. Every creak and groan of the diner felt amplified in the silence. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing mind, but all I could see were their faces twisted, distorted, and full of nothing but sorrowful longing. What if we never find Josh? What if Sarah's voice faded, the fear in her eyes threatening to spill over? "We will find him," I insisted, trying to sound brave. "We just need a plan." Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement outside. I leaned closer to the window, peering into the darkness. My breath caught in my throat. Through the rain-slicked glass, a figure hovered just beyond the diner's neon glow. It was hard to distinguish at first, but the unmistakable shape made my heart stop. "Josh!" I bolted upright. "It's Josh!" I exclaimed, rushing for the door. "Wait!" Sarah pulled me back, her eyes wide. "How do you know it's really him?" "Because I started, but my words faltered. The memory of the figures from the parking lot returned, and doubt slithered into my mind. "Tommy!" Josh's voice called, a familiar sound that both excited and terrified me. But before I could respond, a low growl echoed behind us from the back of the diner. My heart sank as dark shadows crept along the walls, blocking our escape. "Something's coming," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach as the shadows began to form shapes, twisting into terrible, familiar faces. They were here, just as they had been before. "That's when I saw it," I breathed, the panic clawing at my throat as reality crashed in. Josh wasn't just outside, he was in there with them, part of that sinister reunion. I bolted from the booth, heart racing as I threw the diner door open, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Josh! Get away from there!" I shouted, the words spilling from my lips before I could think. But as I stepped into that harsh neon glow, the sinking realization hit me: the figure turning toward me wasn't the friend I once knew. "Tommy!" Josh called out, his voice strained and broken, but it was the pleading behind it that paralyzed me. "I'm so glad you're here." He took a step forward, and in that moment, the anger in me surged. "Josh, don't. You don't know what's out there." It felt like time hung in the air. Josh hesitated, confusion playing across his features as shadows molested the edges of my vision, creeping closer, gnawing on the edges of the light. I could hear Sarah's breath hitch behind me, her presence a grounding force at my side. "Where's the real Josh?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The shadows surrounding the diner lurked, eager and hungry. The whispers returned, twisting through my mind. "They are here for you." Josh's form flickered, and for an instant, he seemed to falter. "I'm still here, Tommy. I need you to trust me." But the glint in his eyes was wrong, filled with an unsettling vacancy that made my skin crawl. "No!" I screamed, stepping back. "You're not him. You're just a shadow." With that, chaos erupted. The doors slammed shut behind me, and the very walls of the diner began to tremble. The shadows detached from their corners, slinking toward us like dark tendrils reaching for warmth. I turned to Sarah, heart pounding with raw urgency. "We have to get out." Together, we sprinted toward the back of the diner, where an emergency exit flickered with a dim light. As we tore through the kitchen, the clattering of pots and pans echoed eerily around us before we burst through the door only to find ourselves met by the same rapt darkness we had barely escaped. The air shifted, heavy and thickening around us like a fog. "I can't breathe," Sarah gasped, struggling to keep up. "What do we do?" A flicker of light beckoned ahead, and desperation fueled my resolve. "Follow me," I yelled, barreling toward it. We pounded through the winding corridor of unlit pathways. The soft murmurs of the lost began to swell into a wail, tightening like a noose around us. The figure, a grotesque mockery of Josh, leapt into view, eyes gleaming with malice. "You can't leave us again," it shrieked. I shoved us forward, adrenaline coursing through my bloodstream as I focused solely on the light, reflecting the pale faces of those who had gone missing. I could almost feel the recognition buzzing back to life, threatening to push me into a sea of despair. "Tommy!" Sarah's voice broke me from my trance. "We can't keep running." In that moment, the truth settled within me. They weren't just trying to escape, they were reaching for something they had lost. Perhaps they needed something from us, a piece of our warmth to replace what they had sacrificed. "Wait!" I shouted, skidding to a halt, my heart heavy with decisions. I turned toward the figures creeping toward us. "What do you want?" They paused, a murmur vibrating among them, and the closer ones seemed almost reluctant to approach. One whispered a name, and my blood ran cold, a name I hadn't thought of in years. "Help us." Sarah clutched my arm tighter, her uncertainty matching my own. "This isn't right," she muttered, fear creeping through us. "Maybe they want revenge." "They want to be free," I countered, connecting the dots. Everything made sense. The dated photographs, the lists, the whispers, all unfinished stories. But at what cost? As the realization settled like a weight in my gut, a low rumble erupted from deep within the shadows, and suddenly, a shimmering doorway appeared behind the souls of the lost. "This way," they urged, desperate. "We can guide you." "What if it's a trap?" Sarah breathed hotly, glancing back at the growing shadows. "We can't trust them." Panic rushed through me, mingled with sorrow. "But maybe we can stop this." The eyes of the lost sparkled with a deep longing, a flicker of hope. Before I could hesitate, I grabbed Sarah's hand, tension slicing through the air as we took a step into the light. Instantly, warmth enveloped us, but the shadows twisted in rejection, surging forward violently. Just as the black mass lunged toward us, everything shifted, a blinding light engulfed us, echoing with screams. The world twisted into a kaleidoscope of colors before plunging us back into that dark corridor, but this time, we were suspended in the air. "What is happening?" Sarah shouted, but I couldn't answer as shadows twisted around us, pulling us apart. I squeezed her hand, fighting against the grip of whatever force sought to separate us. Through the raging tempest, I struggled to see, fighting to remain connected to the world. Just as quickly, the light engulfed me again, and as rapidly as it had come, it was gone. I found myself standing alone on a deserted street where I breathed in fresh air for what felt like the first time. Distant echoes of whispering still lingered, but I was free at least for now. Confusion swirled in my head. Was it real? Had I truly escaped? I dashed my eyes around, desperate for familiarity. Where was Sarah? Where was Josh? In the stillness of night, I felt a heaviness settle over my heart. There would be no answers here, and yet unresolved questions filled the hollow spaces inside me. How long would I have to endure this fear, the lingering questions of the darkness I encountered? I walked forward, each step an effort, as both dread and relief tangled within me. I had escaped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something greater than me had found its way through. The truth hung in the air, murky, but ever present. With each passing moment, I wondered, had I made the right choice? And perhaps, most hauntingly, what had the darkness truly left behind? I could still hear the echoes of their whispers, beckoning me, lingering just out of reach. And I knew I might never be able to truly forget.